Good evening and welcome to the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, October 23rd of 2013 at 6 p.m. Has this meeting been properly noticed?
Yes, it has.
Please call the roll.
Vito?
Here.
Eliason?
Here.
Garner?
Here.
Herzog?
Here.
Hilberger?
Here.
Saginaw?
Here.
Wiedenhoff?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Next we have the Pledge of Allegiance, and this evening is brought to us by Roosevelt Elementary by Hunter Noe, Jasmine Cancel, and Ataj Mamat. If you would please come forward. You guys can just stand right about here. The flag is over there. Just put your hand on your chest and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. You start, we'll follow.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And before you sit down, Taj, thank you very much. Congratulations. Thank you for coming. Hunter, thank you very much. Congratulations. Jasmine, thank you very much. And we do usually note that these meetings can be rather lengthy, and it is not a requirement that you stay for the rest of the meeting. So feel free to go home and actually get a good night's sleep.
Take a picture of the motorcycle.
All right, next is the board administrative reports, board president's report. The only thing I would like to mention is the fact that the school district is going to be having a ceremony on Sunday, this coming Sunday at Oak Lawn Elementary for the dedication. So feel free to come and join us for that. Other than that, superintendent's report.
Well, this evening, thank you, Board President. This evening we have a number of issues. As school has begun, we have become very engaged in lots of activities. The first one is opportunity that I had last week to teach a lesson at North High School in their contemporary issues class. I spoke about the district's budgeting process and spent time with students for an hour and actually attracted an audience. Before I was finished, I had principal, assistant principal, and dean of students all observing my delivery of instruction in that class. But it was a great experience, and I look forward to being asked back as another opportunity to share information about the school district. As you recall, the first meeting of every month at our work sessions, we will be having our student board representatives with us, and just the Friday after the experience of being here, our West and North students joined together at the West and North football game to show the unity of working together both on the board and working together as we're observing both of our schools being directed in partnerships and cooperation. As much as the rivalries will continue in athletics, we're looking forward to not having rivalries in other areas, and their partnership is being demonstrated on a regular basis. Next, the mobile food pantry was held at Webster Elementary. Webster Elementary students had the school district's first ever mobile food pantry on Friday, October 11th to support families that are in need. The event was supported by the Oshkosh Area Food Pantry, Feeding America, and Molina Healthcare. Over 50 families benefited from the event, and we thank the many volunteers who made this event a success. ALP's news. Recently, the ALP Charter School completed a local history project focusing on primary and secondary sources. All students completed a research project of the history of Oshkosh. As a part of the project, students walked to the Oshkosh Public Library and the Oshkosh Public Museum to gather resources and conduct research. Some of the students were able to interview community members on topics other than those found in old newspaper articles to read. The students then put on their final essays together and created a booklet containing many local history topics. Students from Alps Charter School are learning science through inquiry. Alps was recently accepted to the American Chemical Society Science Coach Program. A chemistry professor from UWO will be working with the students at least 6 times in the year to help plan lessons and conduct experiments. In addition to the assistance from a professor, Alps will receive $500 to spend on science supplies in the classroom. So congratulations to their efforts and to their success. Oshkosh West raised some $2,130 for Dig for the Cure. Congratulations to the Oshkosh West staff and student body for working hard on raising money to fight against breast cancer. A special thank you to the football team, swimming team, and student government for organizing their groups and raising money to contribute as well. And we have a listing of the individual collections that were done. First place to Mrs. Pollock's class, who donated $228.40, so for a total of $2,130 for the cause. At Tipler, the Pause Peer Helper Program underway. The practice trust, accept responsibility, and work hard and show respect. 8th grade peer helpers are featured in this photograph. The October 16th mentor training program by Pupil Services and Ms. Faust and Ms. Brown. Trained peer helpers were matched up with identified 6th graders for friendship, decision-making, social skills, academic goal achievement, and fun. A total of 50 students are in the PAUSE program and will have the opportunity in November to enjoy monthly scheduled activities. Exciting news as of last Friday night for Oshkosh North. On Friday night, Oshkosh North varsity football became the 2013 Fox Valley Association South Conference champions. This is North's 7th football conference championship since 1972 and their first one in 10 years. The last championship was in 2003. North is currently undefeated at 9-0 and will earn the #1 seed in the Division II playoff bracket. North's first playoff game is this week, Friday, October 25th at 8 p.m. at Titan Stadium against Slinger. Do come and cheer them on Friday night. The coach, Kawanga, and was also named the VPA South Coach of the Year for this past weekend. So some real, as one would say, walking tall going on at North High School these days. Congratulations in Oshkosh West news. Congratulations to Oshkosh West students Reagan Byer for the first ever Oshkosh West freshman girls golfer to qualify for the WIAA State Girls Golf Meet. Reagan competed at the University Ridge Golf Course on October 14th and 15th. And congratulations also to Oshkosh West seniors Elizabeth Edsel, Hannah Dexheimer, and Bailey Sagan to qualify for the WIAA Girls State Tennis Meet, which was held in Madison this past weekend. Elizabeth qualified as #1 singles, and Hannah and Bailey qualified as #1 doubles. Our board president did remind you, as part of his announcement, of the celebration of the grand opening with official ribbon cutting and dedication of Oaklawn Elementary School on Sunday afternoon, the 27th. We would expect that the program will be finished prior to 2 o'clock, and we have another hour within there to provide opportunities for our community to visit and see examples of both schools, media center, cafeteria, and the unique new heating system in that building. South Park Middle School is to hold their annual Veterans Day program. South Park Middle School will be holding an annual Veterans Day program on November 8th, 2013. The program will start at 10:30 a.m. at South Park Middle School gymnasium, and will include performances by the choir, band, orchestra, student readers, and a speaker, and the playing of taps. This is an event open to the public, and please contact the coordinator, Emily Bauer, at South Park Middle School with any questions. And lastly, you have a whole list of activities and meetings that I've attended in the last 2-week period, keeping me very busy with continuing to learn about all the wonderful experiences in Oshkosh area schools. With that, completes the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mack. Listening session report, action steps?
Last time, we had no one in attendance, and
All right.
so we simply talked to each other and did not have anything to
Anything to
report back.
report? All right.
Sure.
Other reports? Are there reports by other committees?
Me?
Mr. Dito?
Policy and governance met. You know, we have a number of policies that we recommended to move forward on tonight's agenda later. One of those which is 435.2, closed campus high school. This is essentially a pilot program to kind of replace the honors study hall, allowing juniors and seniors to attain and maintain a 3.0 or higher grade point average to leave school during their study hall period instead of staying on school grounds. While we were discussing this, we found that other surrounding districts, we have the highest level of the 3.0. Other districts have like 2.5 and that, so we're actually have a pretty high standard bar. There will be a report on this, the pilot program, and the results to see if we want to continue this indefinitely in the future, and that will take place in May of 2014. The committee recommended to move forward with a positive vote on that. Also, policy 447, student discipline. This was on the WASB update that you guys are aware about. We have a number of provisions that are changed, need changing and stuff. This language and stuff was updated on that and to reflect what the current legislative climate is like. Committee recommends that we move up for approval on that. 447.1, corporal punishment. There again was a WASB update, updated a legal reference on there. We recommend approval of that. 4472, use of force by school personnel. We revised some and clarified some language on that and also made a cross-reference to a different state statute. We recommend moving forward on that. School admissions 420. We moved forward on, or we're recommending that the board votes in the affirmative on that one. Once again, WASB thought that we needed to update it. Dr. Jones made some changes to allow the district flexibility in making the decision to accept another district's expelled student. So if somebody from Nashua or something comes down here and they're expelled, we can honor that district's expulsion. Also, we had 443.4, alcohol and other drug use. That was essentially a rule. That's not going to be voted on. That's just been changed. 760, food service management. We're recommending that be moved forward for a positive vote as well.
Thank you. I see most of those are on tonight's agenda.
Yes, yes, sir.
I did get a chance to look at those. Other reports?
Yeah. Thank you. The Energy Committee met October 9th, and I just want to give you a quick update of what happened. The public forum, Steve Barney showed up to talk about getting an Energy Star rating for Oak Lawn. Some of you know Mr. Barney is a strong advocate in our community for Energy Star rating. So we had a little discussion about that, and we're looking into it. Then we talked about energy projects, updates, and timeline. Several buildings were converted from steam to hot water recently. So we got an update on that. And next summer, I guess Webster, Washington, and Merrill will be moving from steam to hot water as well. There was a talk about using solar energy. We're thinking about that. It's been in the discussion. We also talked about custodial training and updating for using all this new technology, and we're on to that. So we got a little report on that. The custodians are being trained on how to use it so we can maximize that technology. Let's see, what else did we talk about? We were in the process of getting the data for August and September on our savings have been on the energy usage. Don't have anything on that yet. We're also looking at our energy usage rules. The rules were written in 2009, and that's a few years ago. Technology changes fast, so we formed a subcommittee to review and update the rules, and that was about it. Our next meeting is scheduled for January 28th at 1 o'clock in the maintenance building.
All right, thank you. Are there other reports?
Education
Kelly?
Committee met on Thursday, October 10th. Seems like a long time ago. Most of the meeting was spent with Sue Panic, who reported on the PATHS program, which is a mental health program for schools through Catalpa. Catalpa is a nonprofit organization that includes Affinity, Children's Health, and Theta, that's been developed in the Fox City to try to meet the mental health needs of children, adolescents, and their families because of the backlog. And it's not unforeseen for some families to wait for 2 months or more to get their young children or teenagers in for counseling. And that's addressing the issues here in Oshkosh. So the goals of the program are more like early detection and trying to help get families to access to care. It supplements what the school counselors do. It's part of the comprehensive school counseling program in terms of helping them with those more severe mental health needs that they don't have time for, and they would be a lead in putting together the whole program. So what it does is it places a licensed therapist at a school, and the proposal is to pilot it at Washington. Therapists would be on site with regular hours, and a clinic would be set up for families to access. There was some concern about logistics, and that will be part of kind of moving ahead with this type of program, because there needs to be a confidential separate entrance, soundproofing. So there's some logistics to this whole thing. So because it's a partnership and it's a little more extensive than just having a counselor in the building, we thought it best that she do a workshop on it at an upcoming board meeting, so that to fill you all in a lot more and give us time to kind of look at some of those logistical pieces. It looks like that they'd like to expand it to possibly Webster and North after the pilot. It seems that there's about 312 visits that families would be allowed each year for the first year, and this amount would double in year 2, and then further increase would take place. So logistics were a concern, and a suggestion was made to schedule something with Randy Johnson and others to discuss some of these logistical requirements. And so the exec team put together a small subcommittee to kind of work on this a little bit further with Sue and Catalpa to kind of figure out how this all might look. And so you can see why it took up most of the meeting. And so look for it to come to a board meeting in the future. Near you.
Other reports? All right, thank you very much. Seeing no further reports, we will move to non-agenda related public forum. Is there anyone who wishes to speak tonight on a non-agenda related topic? Seeing none, we will move to agenda related public forum. Is there anyone who wishes to speak tonight on a topic that is on tonight's agenda? All right, also seeing none, we will move to the consent resolution agenda. I have had number 8, 9, 10, 11, 14, 16, and 17 pulled, and 25 obviously is pulled. Is there anything else that one would wish to pull for this evening's discussions? All right. Well, then, for the consent agenda, the board has been furnished with background material on each item or has discussed it at a previous meeting. These will be acted upon with one vote without discussion. If a board member wants to discuss any item, it will be pulled out of the consent agenda and will be voted on separately. No one else wants to pull anything else? All right. Then I will read. The board will consider approval of 1, minutes of special board meeting, executive session on September 24th, 2013. 2, minutes of regular board meeting on September 25th, 2013. 3, minutes of special board meeting, executive session on September 26th, 2013. 4, minutes of regular board meeting on October 9th, 2013. 5, bills payable. 6, personnel. A, temporary appointments, resignations, retirement and salary schedule. Number 7, exceed revenue limit for energy efficiency exemption. Number 12, dissolution of Key to Learning charter located at Franklin Elementary. Number 13, purchase of 2014 Savannah cargo van and 2014 GMC Sierra 2500 HD work truck. And 15, health insurance renewal with GHT. 18, revisions to policy 435.2 closed campus high school, which we heard about earlier this evening. 19, revisions to policy 447 student discipline. 20, revisions to policy 447.1 corporal punishment. 21, revisions to policy 447.2 use of force by school personnel. 22, revisions to policy 420 school admissions. 23, revisions to policy 760 food service management. 24, roof repair projects at Webster School and the maintenance building.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Herzog?
Yes.
Herzog, aye. Lumberger?
Aye.
Lumberger, aye. Saginaw?
Aye.
Saginaw, aye. Wiedenhoff?
Aye.
Wiedenhoff, aye. Vito?
Aye.
Vito, aye. Eliason?
Aye.
Eliason, aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
All right. That brings us to our individually considered resolutions, the first of which is number 8. Be it resolved that the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education approve removing the following items from the budget reconciliation list for 2013-14 as filed with the Secretary to the Board of Education. Number 23 on that list, deductible increase, single 250 to 500 and family 500 to 750 for a cost of $53,000. Number 27, reduce one custodian for a cost of $61,665. And number 29 on that list, increase employee health insurance benefit contribution from 15% to 16% for a cost of $61,655.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Barb?
Well, I was one, maybe was the only one who asked that this be pulled, but I was curious as to putting these back in. They come up to a substantial sum in my mind, $176,330. To me, it's a good thing they can be put back in. I'm just wondering how this all balances with all of the other requests and.
Well, they were never
being
taken
asked
out.
to
I
do.
mean, because we were used to having a $250-$500 deductible when the Kelly and I'm in the business office built the budget. She just left that in.
Okay.
So when it came down to it, these 3 items were already in the budget when the budget was done, and it was a balanced budget with the other reconciliation items. It just made sense to leave them in.
Okay, well, I'm glad to see that the custodian is back in and the other pieces are there as well. I think that'll be good for the district employees, so thank you. That's all I have.
And we may want to just add that this is also consistent with the work that has come out of the Insurance Advisory Committee as to a balance for the coming year.
Okay.
And bearing in mind that we also need to note that in both the insurance cases, the net savings is really half on a fiscal year because the change in insurance is only on January 1st. So if somebody looks at those numbers and say that seems artificially low for the number of insured individuals, it was only calculated for January 1st of 2014 through June 30th.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? Call the roll.
Lumberger?
Aye.
Lumberger, aye. Saginaw?
Aye.
Saginaw, aye. Wiedenhoff?
Aye.
Wiedenhoff, aye. Vito?
Aye.
Vito, aye. Eliason?
Aye.
Eliason, aye. Garner?
Aye.
Garner, aye. Herzog?
Aye.
Herzog, aye. Motion carried.
All right, number 9. Be resolved that the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education approve the fiscal year 2013-14 budget revisions of appropriations as required by Section 621 of the Rules, Regulations, and Policies of the Board of Education, and in accordance with Wisconsin State Statutes 65.905A, and be it further resolved that the school district clerk is hereby directed to amend and publish the changes in the fiscal year 2013-14 budget as follows. Fund 10 and Fund 80 are the only funds with adjustments. Do I need to read this chart?
I don't think it's necessary.
No? Okay.
Waive that.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Barb?
I had also asked that this one be pulled, and I apologize, I've had an extraordinary week this last week, and I didn't get a chance to talk with Sue,
quite all
actually,
right.
until about 4 o'clock this afternoon. And she addressed my question at that time, which essentially was, I had raised some questions at Facilities and Finance as the newest board member and trying to get up to speed with the rest of you. I was just trying to understand some of the things that were in the budget that you all had seen, I think, going back to August. And she did a great job in terms of answering the majority of my questions. I know she's still answering or looking to answer some on purchase services, since that represents a large figure in the budget. And I think it's important, not only for the board, but for the public, if we're going to maintain transparency, to share some of the content of what's in there. And I did have a chance to talk briefly this afternoon about 4 o'clock, so that's why I had asked that this be pulled. But she's satisfactorily answered all my questions, so I don't have any other questions.
Since it has been pulled, is there anything further that you'd like to state prior to our voting on this regarding the adjustments that you've had to make? I know you and I talked a little bit about, obviously, one of the items that's on tonight's agenda as well, and whether or not that might fit in here.
You know, we will be coming, this is, even though we're kind of calling this a final budget, you know, as soon as the Finance and Facilities Committee reviews carryover, that'll be added to this budget. The transportation adjustments aren't in this budget, so there will be changes that happen to this budget that will be brought back to you, but, because we made very minor revisions in this budget from the one you approved the end of September.
Any further questions? Please call the roll.
Saginaw?
Aye.
Saginaw, aye. Wiedenhoff?
Aye.
Wiedenhoff, aye. Vito?
Aye.
Vito, aye. Eliason?
Aye.
Eliason, aye. Garner?
Aye.
Garner, aye. Herzog?
Aye.
Herzog, aye. Limburger?
Aye.
Limburger, aye. Motion carries.
Number 10, be resolved that the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education supports the transfer of up to $550,000 from the technology equipment budget to the personnel budget. Be it further resolved that these resources will be used to hire 8 FTE of technology coaches for the purpose of providing embedded professional development and teacher support for technology integration.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
I asked to have this pulled, mostly because I think it's a timing issue for me, with negotiations going on with the teachers. And I'm concerned about the message that it sends, that we continue to move money around and create positions and pay for positions, and yet we don't have a compensation model in place yet, and we have teachers that haven't been paid in a couple of years. And so it's more timing than anything for me, that I think we need to put the teaching staff as a priority and not spend any other personnel dollars at this point until we get that figured out.
I just wanted to clarify, you said haven't been paid in a couple of years, you meant haven't been given raises in a couple
Right, they haven't, their compensation has not changed.
Correct,
in a
right,
couple
or
of
has
years.
not changed for the better.
Right.
Right. Okay. Actually, I guess with that in mind, I would say that I thought it was admirable that in terms of technology, they weren't coming to the board and asking for 8 new positions funded from some other source. They're looking to actually cut their own technology budget in half, basically, in order to pay for the idea of developing a better use or a more broad use of the technology we do have. So from my standpoint, I actually thought that was admirable, and hopefully the teachers would see that as a good thing, that we didn't suddenly say, yeah, okay, we're going to suddenly put another $500,000 towards this, but we're not going to do anything for you guys, or we're still going to increase the
Not
health
sure they
insurance.
see that as positive.
Okay.
I had also asked that this be pulled, and for me, it's also a timing issue. I know that Dave, or Dr. Gunlock, headed up a great committee that put in a lot of work in arriving at these conclusions that were shared 2 weeks ago and then again tonight. For me, the timing, though, is we're at the end of October to follow the district's hiring practices and policies. I'm guessing it would be at least end of November if everything fell into place to bring new people in. If those are internal people, then you're going to disrupt classrooms and children who have established relationships. And I've been sensitive to that over the years because I've seen some things that have not necessarily gone well when children have had to change teachers in midstream. Another concern for me is to be able to measure the increase in student learning that these positions would result in, and to lose essentially a third of the school year before these people would even be able to hit the ground running. I have a real concern with that. I know in this year's budget we're also being asked to approve thousands of dollars, which I support, for professional development, and I'm wondering if there couldn't be an interim step as far as addressing some of the issues of professional development so that we get the teachers up to speed so they can work with the children so the children can maximize their learning using the technology. So I really wrestle with this one because I've had a lot of experience working with media specialists and technology in this district, but the timing, I have a real problem with the timing of this coming in with an implementation start date probably at least a third of the way into the school year.
Do you envision this as something that is going to, I guess from my own standpoint, I agree with the fact that you're probably not going to get this up and running until next semester anyway, but I'm assuming that what we're hoping to do is not just meant for this school year or next semester, but if we're training them over the course of next semester, they're hopefully going to then utilize that knowledge over the course of the next several years.
That's correct. We would be lucky to have this up and running by semester. In some cases, because we don't want to disrupt the educational system that we currently have in place, we may have to wait even longer than that. If you remember, this was about the time of the year that we approved the database developer last year, and we just hired that person in August. So in some cases, it just doesn't fit to actually fill those positions because it is too disruptive. So we'd fill them as quickly as we're able to fill them, but we're not going to sacrifice, the learning environment that we currently have to do that. So if we had to wait, given how some of the positions would be configured, we would wait until it makes sense to go ahead and make the shift. The idea was to get them in place as soon as possible so that we can hit the ground running for the next school year more than it is even for this school year. And somebody asked me today, they said, well, how are you going to configure all these? Is it going to be 8 discrete positions? Is it going to be a mixture of positions? It really will depend on who would apply for those positions, who would be skilled for those positions, and if there are ways for us to combine those positions in ways that make sense and work well to keep fewer specialists in the buildings. Because, everybody knows how difficult it is if you just have a 0.2 person at a building. You don't get to see them often enough for them to make a dent. But if we can put some of these components together in a way that works and get a single person at a building, that actually could have a real significant impact. So we would want to make sure that we sit down with the learning team, Julie Mosier, Kim Brown, Dr. Jones, and myself, take a look at those people who apply, take a look at the IST needs and the openings that we currently have, and see if there's a way for us to match those together. But that will take some time. So the earliest I would see anybody in these kind of positions would be at semester, at the very earliest.
The other thing that I want to add about this is that I want to remind you that we are going to be going to the Smarter Balanced Assessment System in the spring of 2015. And with that, we know that when we are instructing in the classroom, that our instructional strategies and the things that we're doing with students need to match how we assess them. And we're currently integrating technology, computers, in assessing using technology, but not to the level that we want our students to be prepared and not at a disadvantage when they are going to have to sit in front of that computer adaptive assessment in placement of the WKCE. So we really want from a different angle, we really want those coaches, and we want to get our teachers and our students ready to be able to perform the best they can on those assessments come the spring of 2015. So we're really looking to match instruction and what we're doing with our staff and our students by using technology coaches in addition.
I respect that. At the same time, I know that when you post for positions once the school year has started, you don't necessarily get the same pool of candidates because there are teachers out there, I'm sure within this system and others, who would love to be one of these coaches, but won't do that because they will not leave their current classrooms. So you get a different configuration. And if you're not able to fill all 8 at once, then you have an equity issue because you don't have the same training going on in the building. So I'm really wrestling with this one, but to me it's a huge timing issue. And I respect what you've said. I really respect the work of the committee that Dr. Gunluck has headed up, but I have real concerns about the efficacy of doing this deep into the school year. I'm great with next fall, but I have a problem with it now.
One of the issues that we've discussed related to that was the finding the best available, and part of the condition that we would look at is if we do not find suitable replacements in the subject areas, we would simply not be able to fill that on that timely basis. If there is within a rearrangement a suitable, strong candidate, because I can, knowing a number of our subject area specialist teachers at the secondary level who have a sincere interest in technology, losing them without having the highest qualified or comparable replacement teacher is not something that our principals would support, the departments wouldn't support, and your district administration would not support. I believe the beginning of the process so that we would be in a position so that individuals could position themselves in allowing the process to get started, but be assured that our concern is equal to what you've expressed, Dr. Herzog, regarding the issue of not pulling high-quality teachers out of the classroom when we do not have an equal replacement. And we know that especially at secondary specialist levels, those are very difficult to find, and we would have to be very, very careful and would only allow a move if and when there were appropriate replacements.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I can see both sides of this. This is a tough one, and I'd go back to what Dr. Saganak said, and I think that's kind of where my struggle is. Yeah, I support technology, and I support updating and modernizing and moving forward and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I mean, you know, our teachers have really been sacrificing for us. It's been 2 years, I think you said, since they've had any kind of change in their salary, and they've also been asked to pay more for their benefits and all that kind of stuff. So it's a concern about the message we're sending and all that kind of stuff. And in a perfect world, yeah, we do both. You know, we support our teachers, and we also buy our technology, which is another way of supporting our teachers, I guess. Less direct, but similar. So, yeah, this is a tough one, and I really appreciate the fact that the teachers have, those that have stuck with us. I appreciate what they've done to stick with us, and some have left, but the vast majority have stayed, and they see us spending money on all sorts of things, trucks and technology and whatnot, and yet they're watching their spending power being eaten up by all sorts of things, inflation, and more benefits that they have to pay for and whatnot. So it's tough. But I do see both sides of this. I mean, whether you vote yes or no on this, I think that there's some things to be said for both sides.
Can I just ask a very blunt question? Is there any anybody in this room that thinks that this $550,000 would ever go to teachers' salaries? Because I guess what I'm confused at is how are these at all interconnected, other than this provides additional support to our teachers. And we're just shuffling around the money within the bucket, but this bucket doesn't go to any teacher salaries. That's not, that is a totally separate issue, and I think we have to be really careful to not get caught up in that type of an argument, because it's not legitimate. It's not a legitimate argument. This money is never going to go to teacher salaries. This is the technology budget. This is a different bucket.
Director Garner, you expressed my words exactly as I wanted to clarify the issue that at the present time being discussed with teachers is basically the budgeted amount and within the CPI index amount of increased base compensation that may occur for this year.
Right.
And so that amount has been budgeted and is allocated, and it's now really a discussion of how it might be distributed. At a point in time, and hopefully by next March, we will be in the position with a plan to look at other potential legitimate incentive or performance dollars that could be available that if we were looking at a direct trade-off, you're exactly correct. We would not choose to sacrifice the district's, frankly, meager technology budget to put into a performance incentive, and to view that as a part of compensation. We will and we do need to look at other means of additional compensation to pay for the incentives that are developed eventually in our teacher revised teacher performance incentive plan that's being presently designed and worked on. And that would be sources that if for next year's budget you were asked to trade and sacrifice $500,000 from the capital investment in technology or the improvement in technology, or put it into performance incentive, in all likelihood the board would not support that direction to trade that off. For the last 3.5 years now or so, the district has desperately been trying to get its technology out of the 1990s, and has been working very hard at doing that. And so I would argue that this being a trade between compensation for teachers of any sort and an investment in improvement of how we deliver and use technology in the district is not really a legitimate trade-off. This board would not support going in that direction next spring, because we would then not only have the additional training, but we tie our arms behind our back, both of them, with the improvement of equipment that teachers would be ill prepared to use, because the staff themselves, some over 400 individuals, identified and participated in the survey to give feedback on that issue of needing that additional help in the survey of the district. And you have a district committee that has strongly recommended this change. And I would caution, as I've had discussions with you on our quarterly meeting, is that as we attack these issues that are necessarily for change as part of the strategic plan, you will be asked to make tough decisions. This is one of those tough decisions. And I think acting on behalf of what the recommendation of a committee and a group will be sets a stage for understanding that other initiatives that will be coming to the board will, if properly vetted and properly sounded out and properly designed, will also be approved by the board as we undertake the initiatives that are under our strategic plan. If we turn our backs on that and say the timing is not right, there are going to be a lot of issues, including potentially sometime identifying 2 or 3 schools as magnet schools, and because we have a community that opposes something that doesn't want their neighborhood school to disappear, we might be in the position then of not being able to make the next tough decision. This is one of those issues that we are undertaking to respond to what are the needs described in the strategic plan, and it is not a trade-off with compensation. I know the timing is bad for the discussion, but the reality is it would not bring back $1 for beyond what the state-approved CPI index base wages that can be negotiated and that you have budgeted for and are part of the budget that you have taken action on approving tonight.
The only other thing that I would share regarding timing is it will take time for these people to get on board, to hire them properly so that we don't make anything worse as far as the instruction in the district. We make a logical, seamless transition, but also the professional development of these folks that we're going to be calling tech coaches. It's going to take some time to cook them and get them going. Districts that have done this have, this is a group that does not necessarily exist today. So getting them up to speed and going will take us some time. Even if we waited until midsummer and said we're going to do it now, they wouldn't be up to speed for the first day of school. So even by making the decision today, nothing changes tomorrow. It just gives us the authority to go ahead and start planning for this and, for lack of a better term, turn it on when it makes sense to do so and when we have the right people with the right configuration in place. It allows us to start that planning and to get moving in those directions.
I guess I would also state that the technology that they're going to be coaching, the people they're going to be coaching and the technology that they're going to be utilizing exists. It's already here. It's already in the schools, and it's not growing any younger. If the longer we wait on this, we have these wonderful objects which we now use instead of a ton of paper. But even these things are only scheduled to be here for 3 or 4 years before they'll no longer be updated by the companies that make them. If we wait on this until summer or August of next year, it takes him another 6 months in order to get people up and running. Now you've got another whole year that's passed by, and that technology hasn't been utilized to its full effect for yet another year in our classrooms. The kids will have avoided that technology for yet another year simply because the coaches weren't there to teach them, or to teach the teachers. And I guess, secondly, I would say that I thought it was extremely commendable that they came forward with this and made that they actually looked in depth at what really is required from our technology budget and said, okay, we'd love to buy all kinds of new technology, but what we really need now isn't the technology. We need to make sure that the technology we have is properly utilized. And they've sacrificed half of their budget to make sure that we don't miss the boat, that we're not going to have a bunch of technology that sits around and 5 years from now they're throwing it out. Yes, Mr. Deaton.
I agree, Matt. I had questions about this, and Dr. Gunlock was kind enough to answer them. I think just by that act, 2 points to make quickly are that it doesn't help to have smart boards or technology in classrooms if nobody knows how to use them, or it's just a waste. I think that by them taking their technology budget and basically gutting it, what they're doing is they're looking at, instead of investing that in depreciating assets like iPads and such, they're looking at it and investing it in appreciating assets, which are our educators, because this will go down the line. This will allow this kind of technology and professional development to actually enter our classrooms. That being said, we just got this evening, and then I'm sitting here. Actually, it was during Stan's report I read it. I'm sorry. But it talks about President Kennedy in 1963. He is on the verge of going down to San Antonio and telling the world that we're going to fire a Saturn V rocket and put a guy on the moon by the end of the decade. And all his political advisors told him, don't do that, don't say that, don't say that, because if we fail, this will be politically embarrassing. So Kennedy took his advisors aside, and it says he described how when he was a young man in Ireland that him and his friends would make their way across the countryside, and when they came to an orchard that the walls seemed too high and too hard to climb, what they did was they'd take their caps off and throw it over the wall. That way they had to get over the wall. And I think that we need to throw our caps over the wall this evening and move forward with this technology. As Matt said, in 3 years' time, if we wait on this, it's going to be even worse.
Anyone else? Please call the roll.
Wiedenhoff?
Aye.
Wiedenhoff, aye. Vito?
Aye.
Vito, aye. Eliason?
Aye.
Eliason, aye. Garner?
Aye.
Garner, aye. Herzog?
No.
Herzog, no. Lemberger?
No.
Lemberger, no. Saginac?
No.
Saginac, no. Motion carried 4-3.
All right, resolution number 11. Be resolved that the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education approve the high school course additions, deletions, and modifications for the 2014-15 school year as filed with the Secretary to the Board of Education.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I had asked that this one be pulled as well. I like change, and some people say that the only constant we have is change, and it's time to, I agree, to make these changes as proposed by the high schools, their departments, and the principals. My major question with this report, and I thought it was overall very well written, did a nice job of showing how it related to the district's goals and mission and so on. But one thing that I found missing in these various proposals is that while there were sign-offs by department chairs and school principals, the curriculum director and the superintendent of schools didn't sign these, and that's usually been, past practice has required that those two individuals sign these, and I was just curious as to why they weren't signed.
Because I didn't go through and sign each of the things. I went through and did the report, and when I did the PDFs, they just didn't. They just weren't signed. We were going to go through and sign these off after the Board of Education
Okay.
vote. So.
Okay. The past practice has been for
Right.
those two individuals to sign first and then for the board, because if one of them were to say no, I'm not sure what would happen necessarily. I'm not sure the policy speaks to a no vote from one of those individuals. I think they do go forward, but I forgot to look up that policy. Thank you.
As of right now, I don't have a no vote on any of them.
Okay, thank you.
Nor did Mr. Mack, I
Okay,
believe.
great, thank you. That's all I had.
Anyone else?
Let me,
Mr. Mack?
Let me just clarify. If there was a veto, it would be at the superintendent's office, and we would not have put it on the agenda at this
I
time.
suspect.
Right.
Thank you.
Please call the roll.
Vito?
Aye.
Vito, aye. Eliason?
Aye.
Eliason, aye. Garner?
Aye.
Garner, aye. Herzog?
Aye.
Herzog, aye. Lemberger?
Aye.
Lemberger, aye. Saginac?
Aye.
Saginac, aye. Wiedenhoff?
Aye.
Wiedenhoff, aye. Motion carried.
All right, and number 12, number 13, number 14. Be it resolved that the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education approve a .5 literacy coordinator, 612, as filed with the Secretary to the Board of Education.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I was on a roll today.
That's all right. I had a feeling we'd probably be discussing this one since, like the last one, it is an addition of staff.
Well, that's true. It is. Trying to find it here. There were a couple of questions I had. Number one, on the job description, maybe I just missed it when I scanned. I didn't use very good reading techniques today, but I was trying to figure out, is this a teacher? Is this an administrator? What's the salary range? How does this interact with the current reading coordinator for the district? I thought that I heard the last time you were here that that position was moving to full-time, and then this would be an additional, what is it, 0.6?
Halftime.
0.5.
0.5, or did I miss something? So those were my questions.
Okay, so
Thanks.
we can answer that.
All right.
All right, as far as, our current literacy coordinator, Deb Darling, she is full-time already.
Oh, okay.
And she is for K-12. but with all of the extra duties that are happening now with PALS testing for K, kindergarten, and first grade, and then second grade next year, and the extra data, including Common Core and the expectations that are happening there. Her plate is very full, and we would really like to be able to continue focusing on the 612 as well. And right now, we know that we need to have a focus on 4K5, but we also want to keep the good work that's happening in 612.
That don't make sense to me. Did you have something in there on a salary or a
Yeah.
salary range?
Yep.
It is on,
Okay,
it's
then
on
I
the
just
teacher,
missed-
it's on the
okay, I'm
teacher's
sorry.
salary
Thank you.
schedule. A coordinator would still be in the teacher,
Okay, I'm sorry, I just missed that.
teacher unit.
Mr. Mack?
You know, I would just express from my observation of what's been happening with training and what our present coordinator is doing with probably being in this very room about 60, 70, 80% of the time. This room is occupied with training. And I have also learned a lot with training because the acoustics in this building are such that when the training is going on, I'm prepared to deal with some more literacy, even though I had an extensive training in reading and reading disabilities and diagnosis. I've learned a lot through overhearing the acoustics into the office, but the occupancy of this office and bringing in teaching staff on a constant basis is a very strong part of that, and frankly, to me, the issue will be, I know that we're going to would be filling this room additional time of bringing in 6 through 12 teachers in the additional training. As you can clearly see on the state assessments on the report card, our need to focus on literacy, pre-K through 12, is at the highest priority, and that is of our greatest need, and to be able to deal with the uniqueness of instruction of reading when you get into the secondary subject areas, that the vocabulary that expands after from 6th grade on with the secondary subject areas really drives a need to have additional instruction in that area to help in the field specialists in those subject areas to assist in that, because not all literacy is going to be taught by specialists at the secondary level. It's not the burden of an English teacher or a language arts teacher to do it. It is all subject area teachers that need to be engaged in that process, and the expectation of being able to train all subject area teachers in helping students with literacy is a critical component and sorely needed in the district, and I strongly support this recommendation.
I had a question, I'm sorry, I had a question when the workshop was done a couple weeks ago, and I thought about it, and I went, do we have data that shows when our literacy scores started to fall off? Because apparently they did, because apparently we used to be doing okay, and then...
It was fairly recently.
They've been holding even for a very long time.
And this is the first year in some of our grade levels that we've dipped below the state average. So we would expect to be. We've been holding stable and dipping slightly when we should be expecting to grow and closing and we have not been closing our achievement gaps as fast as we have predicted. So given changing demographics,
Right.
given the increased requirements in literacy, we've been holding our own, but we really feel that we need to have an increased focus and that our students can absolutely improve, and we need that. We know that having effective teachers in front of them with really effective literacy training, and then coaching behind that, because you need to remember that we have literacy resource teachers or coaches in all of our schools and at the middle and at the high school. We can effectively deliver this and impact students directly in their reading.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I would just add to the emphasis on the whole issue of what I recently was trying to occupy some of the metal file cabinets in my office that had been underused for the last year because it had very old data in, and I had the opportunity to go back and pull files that had old WKCE tests back into the early part of the century, and yes, we were dealing fairly well with literacy at that point in time, but we have also doubled our poverty rate since that period of time. and that the numbers and we should state that in Oshkosh, I've learned recently that we're following a pattern that's nearly identical to the state of Wisconsin. That the pattern of free and reduced lunch counts are basically up, have doubled in the last since about 2007, 2008 in the state of Wisconsin. And for us to respond and continue to compete at the level that is the expectations of the community, that's where our attention to literacy is a critical issue.
A previous board, I know it was at least 1987, it might have been 86, but at least 1987, set one goal for the school district, and it was literacy. That was their main strategic goal, and they did a variety of things to address that, not only at the elementary level, but as reading in the secondary schools or reading in the content areas, to make sure that all teachers were addressing literacy issues. So the concern in this district on improving literacy goes back many years and has included, as you've noted in here, the Fox Valley Writing Project at University of Wisconsin Oshkosh. That affiliation probably goes back at least 20 years with teachers trained at various levels and being very excited about what they've learned and bringing that back into their classrooms to make an improvement in student learning. I just have one other question. Under Major Point D, the 150-minute uninterrupted literacy block, I've heard from a couple of teachers on that. I was invited into a classroom. I spent 2.5 hours, which is, I guess, the equivalent of the 150 minutes. With that one teacher, and she might have been the only one in the district, but was there an expansive or extensive base of research shared that shows that 150 minutes of uninterrupted literacy makes substantial gains and is developmentally appropriate with new kindergarten students?
Well, let's talk about that. And
okay.
So we have a message going out to all of our kindergarten teachers as well. Something
Actually, all of our staff.
Yeah, it's to all staff, but Julie and I met with a kindergarten teacher as well to find out some additional information. And part of the information that we were sharing is that the message went out that it had to be 150 minutes of reading and writing, and they thought they couldn't interweave science or social studies, reading or writing in there. And so we clarified that with this individual, but that's in the memo that's going out actually tonight. So, and then other pieces with that is it was based off of a school that has extreme high poverty and very high achievement scores, and they were doing that, the 150-minute block K-5 in their school, and their scores have really taken off in that school. So that's what it was based off, is going, what models do we have in our district that we should be looking at in order to replicate in other areas.
But speaking of research, if you go look at any research, whether it be on blocks of time, or if you recall, like at the high school level, a lot of research was done on block scheduling. The bottom line is it doesn't matter if it's 50 minutes, 100 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever block of time that you put into place. It's what you do within that time. And so giving the teachers the time to really be able to organize, dive in deep, and do those pieces that they know make up that really pull together the comprehensive literacy model. We wanted to put that block of time in place for the teachers so that they can utilize it. Just putting there's not going to be any research on 150 minutes because the minutes aren't it. It's what you do within it. The other thing is that a lot of our staff has been saying there's a lot of great things going on in our district. How come we're not replicating that? Why are we going outside, or why are we going 50 miles away to seek out an expert when we have expertise right here in our district? And so we really feel that we need to be searching out what are our effective practices, where is our data showing that these practices are effective, and why wouldn't we replicate them or do them within the district if they're proving effective with our children here in Oshkosh?
Thank you.
Allison?
So it's the time, what I'm hearing you say is that it's the time, it's the amount of minutes and what you do in that time.
Correct.
Okay, so here's the other side of that is that what a few of the schools have done, I'm not sure if this is true in all the 4K through 5 schools, but they got rid of the second recess.
Well, they didn't get rid of the second recess. The number of recess minutes in all of our elementary schools is exactly the same.
Okay,
It's
they
where
just
they
rearranged
it's
where they
where
were.
they place those recess minutes.
Okay.
And so we have, I mean, there's DPI guidelines as far as the number of recess, and we know
That's what I thought.
kids,
Okay.
we want kids to be active, et cetera. So the number of minutes is exactly the same.
Okay.
It's where they're placed during
Got
the
it.
school day.
Thank you.
Yeah, but isn't that kind of like saying, we're going to eat all our food in one meal? I mean, I say,
of it
you know,
is-
I'm hearing back from people, kids in lower elementary school are crying and stressed, and they don't want to go to school because they're not learning enough. I mean, and this is nothing to do with you guys, and you're doing a great job in what you're doing, but the whole political climate and education now, if you're starting to stress out second graders, this is not a good thing. It's just a comment. You don't have to respond. But I you know, it really concerns me as an educator. I've been in education all my life, 62 years old, and
And if they're stressed at second grade, just think what they are when they get to be 10th graders.
Are you indicating that they're just blocking it into a single recess?
Some of the schools have taken the minutes and they've added it on to lunch. The other piece is that the lunch hours are basically spanning over the same amount, the same block of time, I should say, like over the noon hour. And you need to remember our elementary schools are now getting out at 2:35. And so, in order to have a solid afternoon instructional block,
That is the 2.5 hours.
yeah, that's the 2.5 hours. So, in order to be able to do specialists, in other words, you know, art, music, PE, etc., you want to have a morning instructional block and an afternoon instructional block. And in order to get that to happen, you do have to, depending on the school and how their resources and their specialists are done, they do that. There are some schools that still do have an afternoon recess, but it really, I mean, they have the autonomy to look at what does their school day schedule look like. Sorry for my voice, as I'm losing it here.
I just have one last question on the reportage of this position is to the Director of Learning. I was curious about that, given that the Director of Curriculum supervises all of the ISTs. I'm sorry. Okay.
No, that's okay.
Okay, well, I was going to say the reportage would seem to make sense. I thought the ISTs all reported to Director of Curriculum. Sorry.
Nope, that's okay.
Okay.
Together we
Well,
are a team
actually,
and we
it's-
make
we're
up.
to- yeah,
I
we're-
mean, we really
Okay.
do. But on paper, they report to me, but Julie and I both work directly with the IST.
Okay, thank you.
And we would do the same with the literacy coordinators.
Kelly?
So just to be clear, this would be a new position, a new
Correct.
hire that would work half to part-time?
Actually, right now we currently have a .5 literacy coach opening at one of our middle schools that we have a long-term substitute in. And so what we're planning to do is put that .5 together with the .5 coordinator leadership position for a 1.0 position. Because you're right, to try to find a .5 coordinator would be pretty difficult.
Well, and they
It's
always end
been
up working
just as
full-time
difficult
anyway.
to find the .5
Yes.
coach.
Well, again, timing to me is an issue because I think you'll get a different pool of candidates when you're a third of the year through the school year as compared to had you come forward with this in the spring. I would prefer to see these positions come to the board in the spring, not the night that the board is approving the budget. I just think the timing is not good.
The other thing about this, Barb, is that a lot of this is being data-driven as
Okay.
far as like what we are seeing currently happening with instruction and what's going on in the district. And so once again, it's going back to we want to respond as soon as possible to the needs that we're seeing. The other thing is that when you're posting a coordinator position, you're bringing in a different pool of candidates than you would for a literacy resource teacher or a literacy coach. That's a different level of candidate. I'm hopeful that we would be able to find that sooner rather than later.
Okay.
I would also
Thank you.
make the comment, Barb, that I concur with you. It is tougher to find quality candidates at this time of year. However, like Mr. Mack said earlier, we would not hire anybody in that we didn't think was highly talented, qualified, would do well for us. I mean, we would just stay status quo until. So,
Okay.
and that's the way we pretty much handle all of our positions going forward. It's
Thank
very
you.
important to us.
From a fiscal standpoint, in the spring, the unsure whether we were getting zero increase or $150 increase or any increase whatsoever from the legislature, it was not until solidly into June before we knew where we were financially, and we would not have brought forth such a recommendation had we not received additional revenue from the legislature, and we needed to really wait. In the first year of the biennium, it is very unpredictable, as you will know from your past experience in the district, that to predict what the revenue would be, and so we would have been, especially when we had an extensive list of additional cuts, that some of which you restored tonight, we would have been hard pressed to recommend such an additional investment. So the timing is such where we now see our financial picture. We have a balanced budget within the revenues available. We've been able to restore the dollars back to fund balance that we had hoped to do, and so we were in a position to now look at this in light of our instructional needs.
Thank you.
Further conversation? Please call the roll.
Eliason?
Aye.
Eliason, aye. Garner?
Aye.
Garner, aye. Herzog?
Aye.
Herzog, aye. Lumberger?
Aye.
Lumberger, aye. Saganag? Aye. Saganag, aye. Wiedenhoff?
Aye.
Wiedenhoff, aye. Vito?
Aye.
Vito, aye. Motion carried.
Resolution number 16. Be it resolved that the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education approve amending the transportation budget by $72,543 to implement the plan outlined by Cobuson Buses as filed with the Secretary to the Board of Education.
So moved.
Second.
All right, discussion. I actually asked to have this one pulled largely because I was thinking about what I did call and ask some questions, but I guess one of the questions I have is obviously this is one of the problems that we had with the last one is that it was not something that had been actually tried. They didn't go out and actually run the routes prior to, is my understanding. And that same thing is probably going to be true here since we're in mid-year already, I'm assuming. Do we know this is going to work? And I guess, don't even answer that, because I guess the question is, if this doesn't work, what's Plan B? And is there anyone from Cobuson who's joined us this evening? No?
No.
Okay, that's unfortunate.
Well, they did claim that they will run the routes, but again, doing a dry run is a lot different than
Yes,
a day when
definitely.
you're not sure whether kids are going to ride or not ride.
And it's different if there's no snow and if there's 3 feet of snow.
We really want this to work, and Cobuson as our partner want it to work. So if this gets implemented and it doesn't work to our satisfaction, we will keep working with them to make sure it does.
I would just add in the fact that after Sue and I have kind of, as it were, kind of inherited this issue, and in tracing back the planned effort that was developed by Cobuson, they reflected on when students were really arriving at the city schools that within the city of Oshkosh, and they were seeing, and they did not expect necessarily the pushback on the arrival. We've tried to alter that by now some 20 minutes, but we have children who are leaving their homes on or about before 7 o'clock. In fact, in working with the police chief on crossing guards, they had extended their time that they were actually having crossing guards out at 10 minutes to 7 for city schools, because children were on their way to walking to school with the availability of breakfast programs. And we have worked with Peggy and Food Service and with giving notice that there's still plenty of time for either breakfast programs and the like, and that we have altered the starting time for crossing guards to be 7:10 as opposed to 6:50. The Cobuson folks had observed and watched what arrival times and when children were leaving for school in city schools, and we've discovered that we, in many ways, because of both distance as well as lack of sidewalks and having a history that's different. A issue that the majority of the issues have related to our two schools, one in the city, in the town of Algoma, and one in the town of Black Wolf. The Black Wolf situation with Lakeside is not, it has historically always been a busing area. There's not a question there. The issue of a more concentrated population within the Oakwood attendance area within the town of Algoma was a uniquely different one, where you have concentrations both of automobile and bus traffic. We've redone that arrangement, and the approach now from reversing where buses are picking up, dropping off and picking up students, and reversing that with automobile traffic has worked extremely well. But as I analyzed what had occurred in the original plan, the belief that the acceptability of arriving at school as early as children are arriving at school within our city schools would be acceptable. It was clear that that was not acceptable. Plus, those two schools historically have not had breakfast programs, and that changed the direction there. We've asked Peggy to analyze to see whether there is interest in breakfast programs. The numbers at Lakeside may never be at that level, but there potentially could be interest at some point in time in the future. It wouldn't take away from the direction that we gave Cobussen back in the second week of September, after we had 5 days of bad busing experiences, to have arrival of students at school no earlier than 7:30. That gives a margin of 20 minutes from the first bell, which can be stressed when snow occurs, when rain occurs, but primarily it's a snow issue, and allowing by their undoing some other overlapping schedules that involved significant overlap with our non-public school transportation system. They were able to separate that out and to frankly come back and do it with 3 additional buses. In our earliest discussion, Sue and I worried about the fact that they talked about 6 or 7 buses it would take to fix the problem. They came back with less than half of that number to fix the problem, and came back with 3. And primarily that was done because they were able to untangle some of the transportation and are really running some separate busing issues for non-public school students, and that uncomplicated that process considerably. So when we received this plan last Thursday, we were pleased to get the information. The plan would be, if you approve, that they will have waited and will wait until we give the word tomorrow upon your approval to re-communicate with every single parent within the affected areas with individual letters, and to change the pickup time for buses. But we were not going to have them start that until after your approval. And the target was that they would have that all in place and starting on Monday, November 11th, with the change in schedule. We are advantaged with the coming weekend, not this weekend, but the weekend after, with the issue of daylight savings time. For the darkness, we gain an hour of daylight in the morning, and with the pickups, we will then also be on a more 15-minute adjusted pickup time than what we previously had. I think it's a good outcome. I think the cooperation we've had with Cobussen is very positive. They worked hard to come up with a plan that works, and we believe that it's a good positive outcome that will serve well. There are some minor modifications in the afternoon schedule that will occur that will speed up the transportation. We will not have children on the bus at Lakeside waiting for the Green Meadow students to arrive. They will be able to move those children home sooner. And in addition, they have untangled some of the morning busing that should allow students to arrive at their middle schools on the appropriate time for school, not just having the bell ring as students are walking into school at the present time. In fact, they were committed We'll check our reference sources, but they were committed to begin that process as early as Monday or Tuesday of this week by altering the shuttle system that they have to move students to middle schools faster in the morning.
I just had two questions. So what are the affected areas that we're talking about? Are we just talking about Oakwood and Lakeside?
No.
No.
All transported elementary students.
All transported will
Okay.
be in
Because
compliance.
most of the city schools are not bused.
Right. We bus about 3,500 of our 10,000 students are on standard transport.
Okay, so a
regular
third of our
transportation.
kids.
About a third of our kids are bused.
Okay.
Have access. There's a number of several hundred that have special transportation. Plus, we have a number of our 4K programs which are
Okay.
bused separately from that. But from the their commitment is to not have any delivery of students in any location earlier than the 7:30,
Which is
for
the elementary.
Right.
Okay, so this is, I mean, for all intents and purposes, this is the elementary school problem.
Right.
And it's mostly an issue with the Oakwood and Lakeside.
Right. It has
Okay.
been.
Okay, and then, because this cuts our potential savings that we thought was about $250,000, cuts that by a third.
Right.
So that's a pretty big hit. And that was, already a budget reconciliation that was pretty difficult already. So I guess I'm just going to ask, did anybody ask Cobeson to shoulder any of these costs, or are we going to pay for everything?
We believe from all the other changes that are not enunciated as separate buses that we have had significant compromise. They're absorbing a fair
Okay.
amount of the rearrangement in order to make it stay at only 3 buses.
Okay.
The arrangement is far more extensive than, the rearrangement is far more extensive than the direct charge of 3 buses.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yes.
I guess some of the people I heard from were actually Oaklawn as opposed to Oakwood or Lakeside, and the concerns there were the concerns that are addressed in the report, that they were arriving a half an hour. They were getting up early and arriving early for the sole purpose of waiting around until school started. And hopefully this will alleviate that. It's my understanding that it doesn't change any of the start times of the private schools that are going to be bused on separate buses at this point. It still represents a substantial savings, although it wasn't certainly what it was. But I would like you to talk about budget impact and the implementation. As you stated earlier, this number, the 72,000, is not in the current budget, but you believe that you'll be coming forth with a modification then in the future?
Right.
For the full 72, or do you think some of this is going to come out of something else that is around? What?
Well, there's a number of options. I think currently you still have a little bit of savings left between I think you saved like $342,000 on turnover of staff, and we used $240,000 of that for the 11% increase in health insurance over the 10% that was budgeted. The halftime literacy coach took about half of that was left. So you do still have about $50,000 left in the budget from those savings. The reconciliation items included using fund balance, and this budget currently doesn't use fund balance. So a balance of this may end up coming out of fund balance.
So we'd be looking at something coming out of fund balance in the amount of about 25,000 rather than 75,
Right.
basically. Okay. And I guess then implementation, when you're talking about starting this on the 7th, obviously Halloween is next Thursday already, and the 7th is a week after that.
The 11th.
Oh, the 11th, I'm
That
sorry.
was right.
But I guess that, well, even the 11th is, it seems fairly short. I'm concerned about whether or not they're going to be able to notify everybody appropriately and on time. I know the notifications this fall were very quick. Are we going to see those notifications, tomorrow or, directly? I mean, we're voting on it tonight. I'm assuming they're going to get them out quickly.
They had committed to us that they were preparing and running labels and addresses and envelopes that they were planning to be in a position that they would begin mailing the verified change of times within this week, and wanting plenty of time to communicate and answer their phones for any clarifications in that 2-week period that exists, because frankly, we have the last combination week of October, November next week, and we have the full week before that next that follows. So we do have some, if we take Friday out of the schedule, which is not a student day, there are about 8 to 10, 11 days that will allow that to occur, and that was planned for, and that's why the 11th was identified as the time for the restart up of a revised schedule.
All right. Barb?
I'm glad to see this proposal come through. This is the second district where I've worked with Cobeson, and I've always found them to be good people, although I'm sure some of the people whom I worked with, like myself, are long retired. But they've always been a good company to work with, very reasonable, and I had occasion to go out to Oaklawn one morning. I thought I was getting there early. I was at 7:15, and there were already 3 buses sitting in the driveway there with their motors idling and full of children. And I went inside the building, and one of the paraprofessionals came out who informed me that he was basically donating his time to supervise those children. So the magic time was 7:15. He would make sure those children got off the buses safely and directed toward the playground, and then waited for the next wave of buses. But 7:05, I questioned why they had to get up so early to sit on the buses and just idle there for 10 minutes. So I think this will definitely be an asset to those children, and hopefully they're learning. Maybe they won't be quite as tired.
More sleep.
Or asleep, right.
More sleep, less waiting.
Right. Exactly.
And I can respond certainly the strategy that as they were trying to build time because of using the same driver and same buses for 2 complete routes, they were worried about meeting the secondary pickups and deliveries on time, and that compression in a concentrated area proved to be not a workable solution. But I am most complimentary of their responsiveness to our expectations of fixing, and I cannot say more about the fact of, and I think Director Garner's question about the financial negotiations, they came forward with a very separated out, absorbing a fair amount of cost of their background shuttling in order to meet that criteria.
Great, thanks.
Other discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
Garner?
Aye.
Garner, aye. Herzog?
Aye.
Herzog, aye. Limburger?
Aye.
Limburger, aye. Saginaw?
Aye.
Saginaw, aye. Wiedenhoff?
Aye.
Wiedenhoff, aye. Vito?
Aye.
Vito, aye. Eliason?
Aye.
Eliason, aye. Motion carries.
Resolution number 17, be it resolved that the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education authorize Board Member Matthew Wiedenhoff, who is the representative delegate for the TIF districts for the Oshkosh Area School District, to vote in favor of donation of funds from Tax Increment Finance District Number 7 to recipient districts TID 20 and 21, as filed with the Secretary to the Board of Education.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. I actually asked to have this one pulled so that I could answer any questions that you may have about it. The gist of it, hopefully everybody has realized by now, is that the city has come to us with basically the vote on transferring some funds from Tax Increment District Number 7, which is a district that is doing well, to 2 districts that are not doing well, number 20 and number 21, which are along the riverfront. Basically, the one used to have the Pioneer in it, and the Pioneer has since been eliminated and has reduced the valuation of that TIF substantially. The other one had a valuation which was based on a $55 million construction that never occurred. And so those 2 are in need of funds. This is not the first time that this has happened. They have done so. They've transferred funds to TID number 13 previously from TID number 7. But I guess from my own standpoint, I see this as being good for the city and good for the community. these kids will eventually move forward, and I think that making sure that they are successful and not a gigantic burden on the city only makes sense to the health of our community in general, not just the city, but the surrounding community. Does anyone have any questions regarding this or any of the finances? I guess I will say that there are upcoming TIDs that we will be able to take advantage of.
Yep.
In terms of closing out TIDs that will have money left in them. In 2013, there is actually one that's closed out, and I talked to the city today, actually. They do have that number. He was going to get it to me, but I didn't receive the email, I think, before I came here. But we're expecting roughly $300,000. That is a rough estimate of what we're expecting, and we're expecting it to be coming to us sometime before the end of December, basically. So in this 2013 school, or 2013 year. We're also expecting that they will be closing TID number 8 in 2014, and we would have a distribution from that is likely to be somewhere around 700 or 750,000, maybe even 800,000 if we were lucky. And we are looking at the possibility of actually having TID number 9 close in 2015 with a possible distribution of 1/3 or roughly 1/3 to us of $1.1 million. So admittedly, making TID 7 into a donor TIF does reduce the amount that we as the district would get, but it doesn't do us any good if the city goes under or is dragged down for years, or if those properties can't recover in value. The more that they recover in value, the better off we are as a community, and we are as a district. Any questions? All right. Please call the roll.
Herzog?
Aye.
Herzog, aye. Lemberger?
Aye.
Lemberger, aye. Saginaw?
Aye.
Saginaw, aye. Wiedenhoff?
Aye.
Wiedenhoff, aye. Vito?
Aye.
Vito, aye. Eliason?
Aye.
Eliason, aye. Garner?
Aye.
Garner, aye. Motion carried.
Lastly, we have resolution number 25. Be it resolved that the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education approve the 2013-14 tax levy outlined below as filed with the Secretary to the Board of Education. Fund 10, $38,124,421. Change back, $40,927. Fund 38, $2,800,182. Fund 39, $1,233,113, and Fund 30, $999,589 for a total of $43,198,232.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, what did I say? Oh, sorry, Fund 80. Did we get a second?
I seconded.
Great. All right. Please call the roll. Is there a discussion? No. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Lemberger?
Aye.
Lemberger, aye. Saginaw?
Aye.
Saginaw, aye. Wiedenhoff?
Aye.
Wiedenhoff, aye. Vito?
Aye.
Vito, aye. Eliason?
Aye.
Eliason, aye. Garner?
Aye.
Garner, aye. Herzog?
Aye.
Herzog, aye. Motion carried.
All right. Request for future agenda items. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add or see come before this board in a future session or a future meeting? All right. Seeing none, obviously, if you have something in the future, you can always give it to either myself, Stan, or Steve Dito. Announcements?
What's that motorcycle?
Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to say anything.
What's going on
You have
there,
a motorcycle sitting next to you again, Steve.
I'm very happy to say something. I don't need to lead the charge, so I'm happy to fill everyone in. A couple of things. I want to first thank the dealership in Fond du Lac who made this possible, Pro Motorsports. Fond du Lac gave us this electric motorcycle, this low emission, low carbon footprint alternative vehicle to bring in front of really hundreds of students. So we've had it at a number of school sites from elementary to high school. And really, the reason I've got it here tonight, the reason we've had it in schools is because year on year, perhaps this will become an annual event in board meetings this time of year. But we're seeing electric vehicles get more advanced in terms of range, battery capacity, price point easing down, and essentially becoming a more viable alternative for some people. And I think it's really important, as you saw the young man tonight shooting photos with his phone. Same thing among students. Real, tangible in the classroom is quite different from a video, as good as videos can be. So I'm just sort of advocating those sorts of experiences, being an alternative vehicle, be it bringing film directors in, whatever the thing might be, to make real things, to bring real things into the classroom. Also, if I can go down that tortured metaphoric path for a moment, I think of this great bundle of technology, right? As sort of a reminder that all technology, as great as these things have been, and they have been, it's not all screens, right? There are Boeing 787s, there's carbon fiber, there's battery technology, all kinds of things going on in the world that we need to be cognizant of in our district. Also, when doing some research for the school presentations, the AAA puts a new car operating expense at 60 cents a mile, a mid-size sedan, new. The company puts this at 1 cent per mile. So I think from that, where in our operations could we save 59 cents out of 60 in expenditure? Maybe nowhere. But if you had said 10, 20 years ago, well, there are vehicles that save 59 out of 60 cents in operating costs, people would have looked askance at you a bit. So I just think it's sort of helpful to think that drastic, radical change is possible, and I think if we could just keep that sort of background framing for our discussions on many topics. So that's the big, long explanation. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Again, what he's brought for us today is an electric, for those of you who are viewing this and may not have come in, what he's brought before us is an electric motorcycle, no emission electric motorcycle. And it should be noted that there are people actually who are working for the district who have purchased electric vehicles for their own private use.
Yes. Thank you. And we have a board president, if I might add, who has opened his house as part of this project on numerous occasions for students to see a hands-on, fantastic, tangible presentation of renewable energy up and running, working in a house. Thank you, Matt.
Not a problem. Thank you very much for bringing that in. Other announcements? All right. Seeing Stan?
Members of the board, and I think for the benefit of the audience, although this has been the most understated passage of a levy for this coming year, we should remind the public that contrary to earlier estimates of the amount of potential increase that was approaching in the 8% plus range, at one point in the earlier part of the progress, the board took action this evening that effectively had a levy increase of 3.52%, as opposed to anywhere near the earlier figures of approaching 8+% in earlier discussions. So for benefit of the community to understand that the action tonight, although understated, shouldn't go unstated in our conversation, that is good news and helpful to property taxpayers in the school district.
Is that taken into consideration that the $100 million that they just passed is?
Yes, it has.
Okay.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Call the roll.
Saginaw?
Aye.
Saginaw, aye. Wiedenhoff?
Aye.
Wiedenhoff, aye. Vito?
Aye.
Vito, aye. Eliason?
Aye.
Eliason, aye. Garner?
Aye.
Garner, aye. Herzog?
Aye.
Herzog, aye. Lumberger?
Aye.
Lumberger, aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you for coming.